Right now, one of the absolute best electric vehicles that you can buy anywhere on the global market is Flat. Out illegal for sale in the United States, it is not because these cars are unsafe or because they fail to meet the basic engineering requirements of an electric vehicle. It is simply because the United States government has slapped a massive 100% tariff on every single electric vehicle coming out of China, and on top of that, aggressive tax. They just finalized a total connected vehicle software ban that completely locks them out of the domestic market. If you have watched even a single minute of automotive content online over the past year, you already know I am talking specifically about Chinese electric vehicles. In fact, the prominent tech creator Marques Brownlee dropped a massive review at the end of 2025, where he tested one of these exact machines. I want you to listen very closely to how he opened that video, because it completely shocked the entire traditional automotive establishment. He literally said that if these specific Chinese electric cars ever made it into the United States, they would completely cook every single piece of competition we have here. He warned that they are just too good. They carry way too much advanced technology, and they are simply too cheap to not dominate the entire landscape. If you actually had the discipline to watch his entire review until the final frame, he was completely blown away by the actual product quality. He explicitly stated that the vehicle he tested cost $42,000, but feels exactly like a $75,000 car built inside America. And that $42,000 price tag is not even the craziest part of the story, because other entry-level models cost a mere fraction of that. The famously efficient BYD Seagull sells in foreign markets for roughly $10,000 to $12,000, while receiving glowing reviews from global automotive critics. But look, this video is not just a casual chat about cool electric cars, because we need to talk about something much more serious affecting your money. This is about a massive systematic decision by the United States government to completely wall off international trade with its largest global trading partners. And over the last few months, they have started aggressively blocking trade with the rest of the civilized world as well. Over the past year alone, America has launched one of the most hostile, aggressive tariff campaigns we have seen in the past 100 years. They are targeting vital economic sectors like automobiles, consumer electronics, industrial steel, raw aluminum, and now life-saving pharmaceutical products. The last time the American government made a radical protectionist decision of this magnitude was all the way back in the year 1930. And if you open a real history book instead of listening to political talking heads, you will know the result was a catastrophic 66% collapse in global trade. So in this video, we are going to skip the academic garbage and walk through the raw financial data of what is actually happening to our economy. Right now, we are going to look at exactly what happened the last time we tried this failed experiment, and I will show you exactly how much this trade war is going to cost your household. I am going to deliver this facts-only analysis in a straightforward way. Even if the underlying economic data feels incredibly daunting to look at right now, I promise that by the time the end card rolls on this video, you will actually be informed enough to protect your own capital. Let us first dissect the massive political wall that has been built around Chinese-made electric vehicles over the past 24 months. Starting back in 2020, the United States officially jacked up the tariff rate on Chinese electric vehicles from 25% all the way to a crushing 100%. Now, after the change in presidential administrations occurred, the government not only kept those 100% tariffs firmly in place, they doubled down. They officially finalized a sweeping connected vehicle software ban that went into full effect in January of 2025. On top of that, we have the highly restrictive Electric Vehicle Tax Credit Act dominating the retail market to even qualify for that generic $7,500 consumer tax credit inside America. Your car must be completely assembled in North America, and your battery materials must be sourced exclusively from the United States or a very short list of approved political trading partners. The connected software ban is even more extreme because it declares that any vehicle using software or hardware linked to China or Russia is completely banned from domestic sales at the end of the day. The politicians are screaming that this boils down to absolute national security because they do not want consumer data falling into foreign hands. It is the exact same playback framework we all watched during the massive TikTok forced sale saga that dominated the news cycle last year. The government forced a massive foreign tech entity to spin off its American operations to a domestic corporation just to keep operating inside the country. So you need to understand that even if the government magically deleted the 100% tariff tomorrow morning, the software ban would still block these cars. That is why independent financial analysts call it a total economic wall rather than a basic tax. You are looking at a 100% tariff combined with a complete software ban and total exclusion from any federal consumer tax incentives. Now, this aggressive electric vehicle wall is a massive story, But it is actually just one small piece of a much larger structural shift in global trade policy. We currently have fresh tariff rates being slapped on virtually every single international trading partner who does business with America. The average United States tariff rate has quietly skyrocketed from a baseline of 2.4% all the way up to 9.6% across the board. That is the absolute highest average tariff penalty this nation has forced onto consumers in over 80 years. The legal battle behind this got wild, because in February of 2022, the Supreme Court stepped in with a 6-3 ruling against the White House. The highest court explicitly ruled that the administration did not possess the unilateral legal authority to enforce those broad tariffs, throwing a huge chunk of them out. But listen to how aggressive this trade war is, because the very next day, the president used an entirely different emergency law to instantly slap a 10% tariff back onto everything. Then, in April of 2022, they announced a brand new round of protectionist taxes on global steel, raw aluminum, industrial copper, and a massive 100% tax on pharmaceuticals. And it does not even stop at physical goods, because we now have unprecedented artificial intelligence chip export controls heavily squeezing our tech sector. American semiconductor giants can still technically export their cutting-edge AI hardware, like the NVIDIA HRDNine or the AMD MRX chips, to global buyers. But these corporations are now legally forced to pay the United States government a flat 15% of their total gross revenue from those foreign sales, using strict export controls as an aggressive tool to generate government revenue, while simultaneously claiming national security, is completely unprecedented in modern markets. What we are ultimately looking at right now is an economy that is transforming into an aggressive, closed-off protectionist fortress. Protectionism is a classic economic framework where a government uses aggressive tariffs and strict import quotas to shield uncompetitive domestic industries from foreign players. The underlying theory sounds great on paper, because if you make foreign products artificially expensive, local consumers will be forced to buy American goods. Instead, the politicians promise this will magically protect domestic manufacturing jobs, eliminate structural trade deficits, and bring factories roaring back to the United States. That sounds incredibly cozy, and I am all for supporting American workers, but we need to look at whether this theory actually works in the real world to find the real answer. We have to look at the historical data from the last time America let politicians completely break the global supply chain back in 1930. Back then, President Herbert Hoover signed a catastrophic piece of legislation called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. I remember learning the basic watered-down version of this bill back in my high school history class, but the actual data is far more brutal than what they teach you. That single bill instantly raised import duties on over 20,000 individual consumer items coming into America from our international trading partners. The political logic used to sell that 1930 bill to the public was identical to the exact rhetoric we are hearing on the news today. They yelled about putting America first, protecting local farmers from foreign competition, and bringing factory production back home. But here is the most fascinating detail I uncovered while digging through the historical archives. For this video, over 1,000 professional economists actually banded together and signed a massive emergency petition begging the president to veto the bill. Even the president himself privately admitted the bill was completely obnoxious and spent months opposing the structural logic of the tariffs. But look at how toxic political pressure can be, because he still signed the catastrophic bill anyway, just to please his party donors and corporate buddies. The Smoot-Hawley tariffs went into full effect, and while it caused a tiny temporary spark in a few isolated local sectors, the macro results were an absolute horror show. Over the 4 years following the enactment of the bill, total United States imports collapsed by a staggering 66%. Our national imports plunged from $4.4 billion in 1929 down to a pathetic $1.5 billion in 1933, and if you think foreign nations just sat there and took it, you are completely dreaming, because our international trade partners immediately retaliated with their own taxes. American exports to the European continent instantly cratered from $2.3 billion down to a measly $784 million by every single objective mathematical measure. That protectionist bill was an absolute disaster that severely deepened the misery of the Great Depression. It failed so miserably that the next president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, had to pass the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act of 1934 just to fix the damage. America then spent the next 70 years painfully building a highly efficient global free trade system to ensure that kind of economic suicide would never happen again. We created the World Trade Organization, signed massive free trade agreements like NAFTA, and established the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. All of those massive multilateral treaties were built specifically because protectionism failed so completely and utterly back in 1930. Now that you understand the real historical data, let us look at exactly how today's identical trade policies are playing out in 22. 6. We already established that the tech wall is keeping cheap Chinese electric vehicles out of your garage. But let us look at the broader automotive market, because here is a reality check for you. There is not a single automobile assembled in the United States that is 100% American made. The modern automotive supply chain is completely global, meaning every single truck rolling off a domestic assembly line contains thousands of foreign parts. Even Tesla, with its massive network of high-tech gigafactories built right here on American soil, still relies heavily on foreign components. So when the government slaps massive tariffs on imported industrial steel, raw aluminum, and specialized auto parts, it does not just hurt foreign brands, it makes domestically produced American vehicles significantly more expensive for you to buy at the dealership. The investment analysts over at JP Morgan just estimated that these combined auto tariffs will drain $41 billion from the industry in year one alone by year three of this trade war. That hidden consumer tax scales up to a staggering $52 billion in added structural costs when you break that macro data down to the individual consumer level. It translates to an immediate cost increase of $3,258 per vehicle. The pricing experts at Kelley Blue Book just revealed that for everyday vehicles priced under $40,000, tariffs are adding up to $6,000 to the sticker price luxury manufacturer. Audi has already quietly raised retail prices across almost its entire 22.6 vehicle lineup by $800 to $4,100 per model. Unsurprisingly, total automotive sales forecasts inside the United States have been aggressively downgraded for the remainder of the year. The analysts are citing massive logistical headaches caused by these tariffs, alongside the volatile oil prices spilling out of the ongoing geopolitical conflicts. Meanwhile, look at what is happening across the rest of the global market. While America sits behind its regulatory wall, BYD just officially blew past Tesla to become the absolute #1 seller of electric vehicles on the face of the earth. China has transformed into the single largest global automotive manufacturer. With their factories controlling nearly 70% of total global electric vehicle production, it is my direct investment take that these aggressive trade restrictions are causing the American automotive sector to slowly and permanently fall behind the rest of the world. Think about it like a high-stakes game of Settlers of Catan. If you are the stubborn player at the table who refuses to trade resources with anyone else, you lose while we sit here hiding behind a wall of taxes. China is busy signing massive trade deals with countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Mexico. We are drastically increasing our long-term chances of being the isolated player who completely loses the global trade game 20 years from now. So the automotive sector is a total mess of rising prices and uncompetitive local manufacturers. But the pain does not stop there. The consumer electronics sector is the next major area that is about to become completely unaffordable for everyday people. The research firm Morningstar just warned that prices for durable goods like electronics, toys, tools, and appliances will jump another 4.5% in 22. We can already see this absolute pricing nightmare becoming an undeniable reality on retail shelves across the country. Just look at what happened last year when all three major video game console manufacturers simultaneously jacked up their retail pricing models. Sony aggressively raised the retail price of the PlayStation Wii. Microsoft raised the Xbox Series prices, and the brand new Nintendo Switch R just launched at a whopping $450. That is a massive $150 price jump compared to the launch price of the original Nintendo Switch console. On top of that, all five major personal computer manufacturers, including Lenovo, Dell, HP, Acer, and Asus, have issued formal warnings to the market. They are projecting 15 to 20% price hikes across their entire computer inventory. Heading into the second half of 22.6, the hardware researchers at TrendForce discovered that a standard $900 mainstream laptop is tracking a near 40% increase in manufacturing costs. That means that exact same mid-range laptop is going to cost you over $1,200 at retail by the end of this year. Now, to be completely fair and accurate, government tariffs are not the sole reason your tech gadgets are getting so expensive right now. We are also stuck in the middle of a massive global memory chip shortage because artificial intelligence data centers are completely consuming the supply chain. The institutional demand for high-end enterprise chips has forced semiconductor giants like Samsung and Micron to aggressively shift their factory production. They are actively moving manufacturing away from standard consumer electronic chips and directing all their capacity toward high-margin AI hardware. If I were running a multi-billion-dollar semiconductor company right now, I would do the exact same thing to maximize shareholder value. If tech billionaires are knocking on my door, begging to buy AI chips at a 10 times premium, I am obviously going to build AI chips instead of cheap laptop parts. Think of it like a local general merchant operating in California during the historic gold rush of the 1850s. If you suddenly see heavy iron shovels selling at 10 times the profit margin of standard denim jeans, you are going to fill your store shelves with shovels. You are not going to waste shelf space on low-margin jeans because you want to capture the massive demand wave hitting your market, but as a direct result of that capital shift. The regular local people who just want a pair of jeans are going to suffer massive shortages and high prices. Just look at the official financial charts recently published by the Wall Street Journal if you want to see the damaged raw memory modules now account for a staggering 20 to 35% of the total manufacturing cost of a basic consumer electronic device. The average global contract prices for DRAM and NAND flash memory are skyrocketing week after week, and to make matters worse, total worldwide smartphone and personal computer shipments are projected to hit multi-year lows this year. Then you toss the American tariffs on top of those Chinese semiconductor components, and you have a total supply chain disaster. The tech supply chain is completely hamstrung, and it is my view that retail electronics prices are going to get significantly worse before they ever get better. Yet even that tech pricing nightmare pales in comparison to the absolute chaos hitting our pharmaceutical sector right now. On April 2nd of 2026, exactly 1 year after the original trade tariffs rolled out, the president signed a massive new executive order. This order slaps a flat 100% tariff on patented foreign pharmaceutical products and their raw active chemical ingredients. Now the political spin doctors are rushing to tell you that this does not affect cheap generic drugs. But let us look at how the mechanism actually works. If a major pharmaceutical corporation signs a strict pricing deal with the current administration and builds local factories inside America, they escape the tariff. If you are a drug company that merely promises to build a factory here but you have not finished